Good evening, everybody, or good afternoon, or good morning, whenever you're listening to this podcast. Right now, it's the evening, and I'm joined, as usual, by Brayton. How's it going, buddy?
Good, good. Always a pleasure joining you, especially on these late night occasions.
Yeah, this wasn't supposed to happen, but plans changed as usual, and as the sun as it gets warmer outside and the sun's out longer, usually schedule gets a lot busier for some reason. I don't know why, but I know you and I both have been busy, and it's always I'm free. Well, I'm not. So, finally we found some time. And who cares if it's 11 o'clock at night? We're both here, and that's all that matters.
Exactly.
Um, as you know, and as I know, and as the listener knows, there's not really much to talk about right now in terms of Buffalo Sabres hockey. The Stanley Cup playoffs, we're knee-deep in the Stanley Cup playoffs. Obviously, as you know, the Buffalo Sabres aren't in the Stanley Cup playoffs or not even anywhere near sniffing the Stanley Cup playoffs, but it's always fun to watch. But I'd rather the Sabres be in them. So today we've got a fun podcast for you. A couple days ago, I put a message out on Facebook saying questions. Anybody got questions? And fortunately for the podcast, we got 8 questions. So for the next few minutes, we're going to answer the questions for you and have some fun. So if you have no other questions, comments, concerns, I might as well get the podcast started.
All right.
And I guess we'll start with this one from Headstone. I don't know if that's the guy's real name. I would assume not, but I'll ask you this question, Brayton. How many rookies do you think will make the team opening night?
Um, hmm. I mean, you could definitely see Zadorov possibly making it. I think Nick Delorier could possibly be another opportunity. He's technically going to be a rookie next season. Then other than that, I don't think whoever the Sabres draft are going to make the team right away. I mean, maybe they'll get their 10-game tryout, but other than that, I mean, maybe Joel Armia gets his chance, but there's no guarantees to that. I mean, you might not see many rookies start out the season in Buffalo this upcoming October. You might see some guys that Tim Murray decides to sign during the offseason. Maybe it brings back Matt DeAugustini, or goes out there and looks for other guys to sign 1-year deals or something like that.
The one I think obviously Rasmus Ristolainen, and I don't
Yes.
remember. Excuse me. I don't remember, and I haven't really looked. I guess I probably should have looked at this one. I believe it's 24 games makes you a rookie or something like that, and then if you play the 25th game, you're not a rookie. I don't remember. But I guess we could, instead of saying rookies, I guess we could just kind of mold this into a young player question.
Right. Yeah.
I don't think Grigorenko is. I think Grigorenko starts in Rochester. I think Ristolainen gives a shot in Buffalo.
Mm-hmm.
Pesek will be in Buffalo.
Yep.
Zadorov might get another 10-game tryout or 9-game tryout.
Larson might.
Yeah,
again.
Larson's ready to play in the NHL, but he hasn't developed. The scoring touch for him is not translated yet, so he might. They certainly might keep him in Rochester for just a little while longer to let him marinate, not marinade. The one guy that I've noticed, obviously through the Amerks playoff run, which just unfortunately ended today in the 5th game in Chicago, a lot of people have been talking about Tim Schaller.
Yep.
He might be able to make the team in a 4th-line role because that's the type of hockey he plays, and at this point in time, with the Buffalo Sabres looking for bodies that can play at the NHL level, if this guy's ready to play at the NHL level in the 4th line, go for it. I mean,
yeah, fine. Exactly.
Again, I'm of the sound mind that I would rather see a kid get a shot over a seasoned veteran just filling a hole because he can skate backwards or something like that. Like this season, Matt DeAugustini played important minutes for the Buffalo Sabres for a National Hockey League team. That shouldn't be happening, but when there's no one else to do the job, someone's got to do it. And I don't think there's going to be a lot of kids, but
no.
If the kids come out and bust their tail in August, I mean in the preseason as well, I don't put anything past Ted Nolan. I mean if Johan Larsson comes out and scores 4 or 5 goals in the preseason, he may not have been in the plans in July and August, but damn sure they're going to find a spot for him on this team. That's just how things are going to work out.
Exactly. Yeah. Any spot right now for the Sabres is up for grabs.
And that's another good thing too, is that guys have to earn their spot. It's not like when there was Vanek, Pominville, and Roy, and your top line was already filled. There's Stafford, there's Ennis, and then there's a spot. There's a second line spots. There's third line spots, fourth line spots. There's defensive pairing spots. I mean, the only really lockdown spot that I can think of right now is there's Ehrhoff, there's Myers, there's Enroth, there's Neuwirth, there's Ennis, and there's Stafford.
And Cody Hodgson too.
Cody Hodgson, yeah, I forgot. I apologize.
And probably Zemgus Girgensons as well.
Girgensons too, yes. It's late. Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm trying to cycle through the roster in my brain, but yes, those 4 guys on offense are locked in. Everybody else is, can be shifted around.
Yeah, just an interesting note also to add on. We have the free agent chart listed on our homepage at SabresHockeyCentral.com, where you can look at the unrestricted free agents and the restricted free agents that the Buffalo Sabres have this summer.
And that was brought up because we usually do that around the end of June, early July, or before the free agency starts in early July. But Alexander Salzer signed a deal to play in the Dell.
The Deutsche Elite League or something like that.
Yeah, I'm bad with pronunciation, so I just stick to Dell.
I tried my best at German.
Actually, there's a team name which I can't pronounce, and then its translation is the Cologne Sharks, or I'm probably even pronouncing that wrong. But he signs a 5-year deal to go home, and after struggling to make it in the NHL and just having a lot of injury problems this year, it's probably what's best for him. It certainly is what's best for the Buffalo Sabres because it clears up a spot. A 6-7 spot for a guy to make the team now. With Seltzer gone, you would think that a guy like Chad Rueda would make the team out of camp. I mean, but then again, like we said, every spot is up for grabs.
Yeah, Chad Rueda is also a restricted free agent, so that's another guy that going to have to keep an eye out for Tim Murray to possibly re-sign.
Moving on to the next question from Gary here. He says, what about our goalie issues? I think we need a proven starter. Any trade possibilities available? Right now, I think that is the best lockdown position. I mean, that's kind of, we already know what's going to happen. If you're looking for excitement going into the next season, don't look at goaltending because in terms of a battle, I should say, in terms of a position battle, it's kind of already locked down that it's going to be Jonas Enroth. It's going to be Michael Neuwirth.
Exactly. Yeah, and unless there's injuries, then maybe you'll see Nathan Lewin again. They got to re-sign Matt Hackett, and there's no guarantees that they're going to re-sign Matt Hackett.
That's for sure.
Yeah, and then other than that, I mean, Connor Knapp's also a restricted free agent. Andrei Makarov is going to be in Rochester, I think, no matter what. I think he's going to be their starting goaltender possibly, but he played really well in the playoffs.
Yeah, I think his playoff earned him a spot in Rochester, and his play may have pushed Connor Knapp out of the picture because it sounds like, from what it sounds like, Tim Murray wants to get some new blood in the goaltending ranks for the Buffalo Sabres. And while Connor Knapp did well when he was called upon and did his job, as everyone expected, but when it comes down to it, if he's not shown anything that stands out and makes them think that he's a NHL goaltender, there's no reason to keep him. I mean, you look at it right now. If the season started tomorrow, my best guess would be Nathan Lewin would start in Rochester, and Makarov would back him up just because who knows what they're doing with Matt Hackett. I honestly, he played good in limited time in Buffalo. I think he'll be back, but again, when guys get like we talked about before on past podcasts, when guys get opportunities and seize that opportunity, it makes a tough decision for the organization in a good way.
Exactly.
I mean, Makarov showed he could play in the AHL. I mean, it was a small sample size, but they played one of the best teams in the AHL to the brink of elimination. unfortunately, they didn't win, but this kid was started the season off in the ECHL, and now he's in the AHL challenging one of the best teams. So
Exactly.
things like that are what you pay attention to. Like we mentioned with Tim Schaller earlier, he's had a great playoff, and all of a sudden people are going, I wonder, this kid really seems like he can play in the NHL, and that's how kids earn spots. I mean, we go back to beating a dead horse, if you will. If you play well in Rochester, someone will notice and somebody will give you an opportunity, and that's at this point that's all you can ask for.
Right. Yeah, and also to add on to that, there's two more goaltending prospects the Sabres have that a couple years down the road could be some future assets. You got Linus Ullmark, not Linus Omark, but Linus Ullmark. He's playing for Modo. Led the league in save percentage and was third in goals against average and was named the goaltender of the year in the Swedish Hockey League. And then you got Cal Peterson, who was drafted last year or the year before last year. And right now he's, I think, in their conference finals with Sioux City. And he's playing with, who is he playing with? I can't remember, but
Hey, it's okay.
He's in the USHL.
Yeah, I was gonna say, Olmark is one of the guys that you often see Chris Baker, the Sabres prospects, talk about. One of the intriguing prospects in the future for the Buffalo Sabres, and guys like that you take flyers on, and if they pan out, it's awesome, and he seems like a guy that may end up panning out for the Buffalo Sabres. And again, the more people you have, the more wealth of riches that you have, it makes a tough decision, but in a good way, and that's what you like to have. You like to have those good, tough decisions.
Exactly. Waterloo is the team that Cal Peterson plays for.
Moving on to the next question. Tim asks, please tell me they plan on drafting some offensive talent in the first round this year and not another goaltender or defenseman.
Well, there's not going to be a goaltender. I highly doubt there's going to be a goaltender going the first round. Anyways, but yeah, with their second pick, I mean, they're going to take the best player available, and if Ekblad is the best player available, then they're going to take him. But I honestly think Ekblad's going to go number 1, and then number 2 is going to be down to Sam Reinhart and Sam Bennett, and I think they're going to take some brains with Sam Reinhart over Bennett. And don't get me wrong, Bennett's an excellent player. He plays with heart, he plays with grit and everything. But Sam Reinhart, he's a very, very good mental player. He knows where he has to be on the ice. I think Sam Reinhart would be the smartest decision, but again, Tim Murray's going to take the best player, and we don't know who's at the top of his list.
As we've said here on the podcast a couple times, Sam Reinhart is said to be the best guy, the smartest guy on the ice wherever he plays. He appears to be the real deal. I mean, that's what you want when you get a prospect, because whenever you draft a guy, there's no guarantee that you're getting anything of value. You just kind of go off of what you see, and from what it sounds like and what everyone says, this kid's the real deal. I mean, right. He's got the offensive talent, and he seems like he would plug in the Buffalo Sabres system. And
Western Hockey League Player of the Year too.
Correct. It's a nice thing to have. I mean, it's one of those nice little gold stars to have on your resume, and it's a very attractive player coming into this upcoming draft. It's going to be a lot of fun. I mean, that's about a month and a half away, I would say. The end of June is the draft, the 27th on a Friday night. 27th and 28th, we'll have full coverage of that. Don't worry.
All right.
Yeah, I actually just decided I just took that night off of work, so I had to make sure I would be available for that. But I don't think that even if Aaron Ekblad comes to Buffalo, there's still a lot of offensive upside with him, that it wouldn't be that much of a drop off. I mean, your defenseman's not going to score 20 goals every year, but Aaron Ekblad's got a very big offensive upside, and he could fill a big role, and Sam Reinhart also is going to fill a big role.
Yeah.
Next question here, Kim says, will Zadorov make the Sabres next season, or will he spend another year in juniors?
I think he's going to get his 10-game tryout like he did last year. He may not play the entire 10 games, but I think if he impresses enough, he'll find a spot on this roster. And if Tim Murray wants to go with the mindset of, well, all the young guys should take their time and spend it in juniors, he's going to go back to juniors. There's obviously no telling what's going to happen. I firmly believe, however, if I had to pick one side, I think Zadorov makes the team. I think he's going to play, and I think if he plays well, he'll stay.
Personally, I think that there's a good chance that Zadorov can make the team, but that being said, I don't believe he will. Just because, like you said, you want to let the prospects take their time in the minors and the juniors. But I think that there's enough, and it's not anywhere near having a wealth of riches with the Buffalo Sabres because their defense there's a lot of guys in the system that aren't as good as Nikita Zadorov is. That being said, do you want to risk throwing him to the dogs at a young age and possibly stunting his growth or just outright stopping his growth? And I don't know necessarily if that is a good thing to want to try. I mean, I'm not saying if he comes and plays in Buffalo next year that everything's going to be terrible and he's going to be terrible, but you got to look at the both sides of the coin here, and then the one possibility is that everything works great and it's awesome and he's an excellent player and this and that, but there's also that possibility that you could completely ruin whatever he's got going, and that's the one thing that I always fear with kids, unless you got Sidney Crosby or Nathan McKinnon or someone like that, where they certainly have shown that they can just step right in and take off and play like they've been here for 10 years. So I think he gets a shot, but like I said, I don't think it's likely he stays. But I think the year after this coming up season, I think he's here to stay.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I don't think he's going to start in Rochester the year after this upcoming year. There's no way. He's too good of a talent to put him in Rochester and give him another year to develop. I think that by the time that if he doesn't make the team next year, by the time next year is over, he'll be ready.
We got another question, or a question here from Bobby asking, how do you feel about the possible future potentially McDavid in next year's draft and the free agency class this summer? Looking into the future, I am very excited about the Connor McDavid draft, not just because of Connor McDavid, but because whoever loses the Connor McDavid sweepstakes gets a pretty sweet consolation prize in Jack Eichel. That right there that's the long and the short of it. That's as much draft advice as I have right now for the following draft. It's a good feeling knowing that the Sabres are bad when these two kids are coming up. Is essentially what I'm saying. And in terms of the free agency class coming up, it's nothing special. I mean, you've got some players that will do good for you, but the Sabres aren't in anywhere near trying to sign those guys. That you're going to see a lot of role players most likely sign for the Sabres. I know Tim Murray said a lot. He said a few times actually that the Buffalo Sabres are going to look to find a few veteran guys who will fill important roles, but besides that, it's just most likely going to be the same hockey team next season.
Yeah. The free agent pool used to look really good, looking good last season, but then some guys re-signed, other guys decided to just basically re-up with their teams. Other than that, I guess what you said earlier about McDavid.
I was just going to say one more thing before you went on to the draft thing. Sorry for cutting you off too.
Yeah, but go ahead.
The one thing that's highlighted, it confirms how I feel with you talking. There's not anybody in the upcoming free agent class that you're head over heels for, or that's a franchise changer or something like that. Usually, recently in free agency, it's always there's a guy who could potentially play an important role on your team, but you usually have to overpay for him, and then when you do, you're paying $6 or $7 million a season for a guy who's really only worth 3 or 4. So that's how free agency's becoming. you don't want to get caught up in that. I mean, the only way to right the ship is by resisting the urge and just paying market value for players that aren't as good, but you're going to pay $2 or $3 million for a guy. You're going to get $2 or $3 million worth of a hockey player.
Mm-hmm. You want me to read off some of the top name free agents that are? All right.
Absolutely.
Let's see here. We got. What did I do here? Okay, here we go. All right, so let's say some of the top free agents that are 30 years and below, 30 years old and below. There's Thomas Vanek, who's 30. Paul Stastny, who's 28. You got Ryan Callahan, who is 29. Milan Mihalik, who's 29. Andre Mazzaros, who's 28. Kyle Quincy, who's 28. Jaro Halak, who's 28 as well. And other than that, I mean, Dave Boland's 27. He's an unrestricted free agent. Devin Setaguchi's unrestricted. Nikolai Kulemin's unrestricted. Steve Downey's unrestricted. I mean, and other than that, you got guys who are in their 30s and above, like Danny Heatley, Marian Gaborik, Kimmo Timonen, Jerome McGinley, Mike Camilleri. I mean, even Alesh Hemsky. Alesh Hemsky's 30, so I forgot to mention him before. But, there's a lot of guys that are just getting up there in age, and how much longer are they going to last? And some of these guys have a cap hit of, $5+ million. You really got to take that into consideration with the fact that how old they are, how many more years they're going to be able to play in the NHL, and if they're going to have an effect on the team right away.
Well, yeah, and looking and listening to that list, I mean, before you come at me with your pitchforks, Thomas Vanek is going to require a lot of money. He's not coming back to Buffalo. There's no doubt about it.
No.
Ryan
Mallett not coming back to Buffalo.
Exactly. A lot of talk that Vanek is quite happy with Montreal and could re-up with them, but honestly, I think at the end of the day, Thomas Vanek is a Minnesota Wild because that's been the rumored destination for the past, I think, 2 years now.
Yeah.
And while Paul Stastny would be very nice in Buffalo, I certainly do believe that with the cap increasing, that Paul Stastny will somehow find a way to re-sign with the Colorado Avalanche because besides more money, there's no real incentive for him to leave Colorado. That's a great great young core with a great head coach with great goaltending. Why would you want to leave besides for more money?
Exactly, and he's centering the top line with Gabriel Landeskog and Nathan McKinnon. Why would you want to leave?
Two of the best young players in the game. Why would you want to walk away from that? I mean, it's happened before, but when you take Vanek out, when you take Stastny out, I mean, what is there to pick through? That's why usually this day and age they always say you build your team through the draft and then you buy, or you go out and get the final pieces in free agency. So
right.
So while you'll have your young goal scorers through the draft, you go out and you find your third or fourth line guy that will play that important role for your Stanley Cup champion team. But you're not going to go out and find a Sidney Crosby in free agency. There's no way between that one.
Well, you know who's a player that is unrestricted free agent right now, and I think is going to get David Clarkson money like he did last year, is Dave Boland.
Oh, for sure.
He's a Cup winner, but he's nothing more than a third-line player. And David Clarkson's nothing more than a third-line player, and him getting paid $5 million plus for being that type of role is just beyond my belief, and there's no reason that type of money should be thrown out there like that.
Well, yeah, and when Dave Boland was coming back from injury this season, there were talks that he was requesting $5 to $6 million per season, which is nuts. It's ridiculous.
No,
but
it's
you know
absolutely
what?
nuts.
Someone will pay him.
Oh yeah.
Because welcome
Absolutely.
to the NHL where no one learns anything from other hockey teams. It's just how it is. But, moving on to the final question of the podcast, it comes from Mikey.
Wow, that went fast.
Yeah, I was going to say, well, the thing is, too, is I'm reading the questions, and as I'm reading them, I go, oh, hey, we already answered that question in a response to another question, so.
All right, cool.
We're outworking ourselves here. But do you see Christian Ehrhoff being traded this summer, and if so, to what team?
I I can't see it right now. There's always a possibility because Tim Murray might get a great deal where he might move up in the draft to get another first-round pick early or something. And if Christian Ehrhoff has to be part of that deal, then if it's right, then I'd obviously pull the trigger. But right now, I don't see Christian Ehrhoff getting traded. I think he's a Buffalo Sabre next season. Maybe during the trade deadline next season he's gone, but to start the season this upcoming year, no. I think he's going to stay with the Sabres.
I think more likely than not, Christian Ehrhoff remains a Buffalo Sabre. There's always, like you said, there's always a possibility. I mean, no one is untouchable, but teams might come calling because he is a cheap veteran defenseman who will play a ton of minutes, and he's very reliable. I mean, whenever Christian Ehrhoff gets brought up, Tim Murray always says you need complementary players to make players better. And I always feel like he is talking about Ehrhoff, because when Ehrhoff has the right players around him, he's a phenomenal defenseman. But when you hang him out to dry, you see his flaws. I mean, that's just how it appears to me. I mean, some team that is, there may be a team out there that says, hey, we're a solid defenseman away from being a legit cup contender. They may come calling and say, hey, do you want a couple pieces? And Tim Murray may say, yeah, it's worth it. But then again, he may say, you know what, we've got a good defenseman now in Christian Ehrhoff, and when we put better defenders around him, when you supplant Mike Weber for Rasmus Ristolainen, a year older Rasmus Ristolainen, just for a quick example, things may be different. I mean, Christian Ehrhoff wasn't horrible this season. It passes the eye test. It passes the stats test. I mean, he was one of the better players in the Sabres this season. Not as good as past seasons, but I digress. Like I said, I don't know a specific team. It's really hard to judge who would be interested. I would think it would be a team that's always been interested. And surely we don't know who that is, but usually, from what we've been hearing, it's always been cup contenders. Always teams that are in the playoffs or on the verge of making the playoffs.
Detroit.
Yeah, I think one of the guys, though, like we've talked about before, the one guy I think that is has the hottest bench, if you will, the hottest part of the bench. I tried to make a funny compare. Usually the hot seat, but I'm tired over here. Okay, cut me some slack. I do believe that Chris Stewart is probably the closest to the door in terms of Buffalo Sabres players. Just because, like Tim Murray's been talking, he doesn't pull any punches. He doesn't. If nothing needs to be hidden, he won't hide it. And when he said that there were discussions with Ottawa, and he was interested in still possibly making that trade, that it's quite possible it could still happen. I mean, that right there to me says, hey, we're still interested if you're still interested. And I don't see why Ottawa would not be interested in acquiring Chris Stewart, because he seems like the perfect player for that team. And that's partially the reason why a lot of people say that's partially the reason why Tim Murray acquired Chris Stewart, was to turn him for more pieces. And why not?
Yeah, exactly. Why not?
I kind of went on a little long there with that answer. I apologize, but Christian Ehrhoff, he'll probably be in Buffalo, and that's that. I mean, don't be mad if he's still on the team. I mean, he's not bad. If it's
no, he's a very sound defenseman.
Be mad about Mike Weber still being on the team, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, be mad that he re-signed for 3 years this past offseason, so we got 2 more years of him.
Yeah, be mad because one of the best defenders on your team is staying with your team. I mean, that's like when people get mad when Drew Stafford doesn't get traded. It's like, well, he's kind of one of the best players in the team, so you don't really want that to happen. That's kind of that kind of runs the opposite of what you're trying to do.
Exactly.
But we can talk about that at a later time, because
oh yeah,
that's like opening up Pandora's box of hockey fandom, because
I
You
hear
know,
you.
we know where that one's going, and we've already been down that road a ton of times. And
We don't
I'm
want to
not,
go down it too much more.
I'm not really interested in going down that road again anytime soon. Maybe after the draft, maybe in free agency, maybe after the cup is over, when the trade rumors start flying, and Drew Stafford gets hypothetically traded to every hockey team imaginable. Then we can talk about
We acquire 6 more teams' first-round picks next year,
it. Exactly
and
right.
have the greatest chance of winning Connor McDavid draft. And
Yeah. You heard it here first. Buffalo Sabres are going to acquire everyone's first round pick. I don't know. Something like that. That's the kind
there's
of stuff.
rumors out there.
That's the kind of stuff I hear sometimes. Drew Stafford traded for something stupid. And I'm like, no, that's not happening.
I remember what it was like 2 years ago or something like that. There was a rumor flying around, and that the Sabres were trying to acquire TJ Oshie for Drew Stafford in a straight up trade.
I remember I remember something like that where uh the Sabres and the Blues were talking heavy, and they were, the Sabres, Darcy Regier, loving his players, didn't want to give up certain guys, and looking back on it, it might have been a good idea if the hypotheticals were true. There's a few trades you hear throughout the time where you said if that happened, that would have been great, but unfortunately,
We had a really bad general manager.
yeah, it's not NHL 14, and you can't just go, well, I want to trade $100 or $10 for $100. You can't do that. I know that's not a hockey player example, but that's the best way I can put it.
Oh yeah.
I'm all out of things to talk about. What about you, man?
Oh, I'm good. I'm all set.
I guess that settles it then. Thanks for joining us this week for another interesting podcast on the unnamed Sabres Hockey Central podcast. My co-host is Brayton. His Twitter is at BJ Wilson SHC. Did I get it right?
Yeah, you got it right.
Boom. And my Twitter, Ryan, is I'm Ryan, if you didn't know by now. My Twitter is at WolfSHC on the tweets. I said that twice. I do it all the time. I even thought about not saying it twice, and I still said it twice. What's up with that? You can follow us on Facebook, facebook.com/Sabres Hockey Central. We are, I believe, halfway to 17,000 likes, which is beyond awesome. You guys are the best. You can follow the website on Twitter. It's at shc.com. You can check out the website, sabreshockeycentral.com. News is slow right now, as we said, but as things trickle through, we will let you know if there's an interesting trade rumor we should tell you, or anything about the draft, or free agency, or whatever happens. Believe me, we'll be here. We'll tell you, because we are as hungry for something as you are. And we should be back sometime soon with more podcasting. Right now, with it being May 4th, draft talk probably. May the 4th be with you, correct. If the draft talk should start picking up here later as the month goes on. Obviously, like we said, the draft is June 27th and 28th. Obviously, June 1st, as we've said multiple times before, is the date the Buffalo Sabres will find out if they get the first-round pick from the New York Islanders. We will know by then. We will not know. We may know on that day, or we may know beforehand, but June 1st is D-Day for the first-round pick. And free agencies, obviously.
And probably after the 1st of June, when the Islanders make their decision, I'll probably be making my first mock draft. Hopefully, we'll get it up on the website too.
Absolutely, and we can talk about it on the podcast like we did, like we have before. So I'm all down for that. So look at that, we're making podcasts. We're making podcast episodes, future podcast episodes while we podcast now. It's like Back to the Future or something. I don't know, but I'm getting delirious over here. It's past my bedtime, although it's not really past my bedtime. I'm just really tired. So for Brayton, I'm Ryan, saying thanks for joining us on this episode of this unnamed Sabres Hockey Central podcast. Have a great day, great night, great morning whenever you hear this, and thanks again, as usual, for listening. Have a great day, like I said, and thanks again.